Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of
Gato.
My name is Hans
I'm Edward.
and we're your hosts for now and forevermore.
Or until we die of some explosion event from an underground bunker somewhere.
If you are new to the Gettle podcast, welcome to one of the internet's best variety podcasts dealing with games, entertainment, technology, and lifestyle, all wrapped up in a wonderful,
geeky Pokemon egg. There you go.
Okay, okay, fine. That's fine. Thanks, Edward. For our long-term listeners, welcome back, bitches. If you're new, welcome. We do hope that you will enjoy. Our long-time viewers and listeners will know that we're doing something a little bit different today, just in terms of actually recording this episode. So, in order to future-proof the podcast for, well, the future, like if I have to travel or if Edward has to travel, that kind of thing, we realize that we need a more effective means of actually doing the podcast. And so this is our first podcasting session whereby we're using Skype. So if Edward's video, if you're watching, looks a bit dodge, that's why. Given how I'm the one who puts the podcasts together, my video will be pristine because it all has to do with we were thinking about like if we did have to travel, data requirements and things like that. So the easiest way for us to actually get the video content, like if it was just audio, it's fine because generally speaking, if we record for an hour and a half, it's only about 200-300 megabytes, which is easy enough to upload and to download. But for video, it's a little bit more challenging given how my video files and even Edward's video files will often border at around about 10 to 12 gigs. So, that's a bit more of an issue or a concern in terms of, let's say, if one of us was over on another side of the world in terms of uploading and then downloading again and, in terms of time and so on and so forth. But now, of course, I'm rambling. So welcome to episode 36. We do hope that you're all doing very well. Edward, how you doing?
I'm good. Woke up with back pain. Still have back pain, but that's just me being old. How are you?
Well, I'm doing a lot better on that front, thank you. So
Good.
Interesting to see that you're falling apart now.
It's that time of the month, I guess, for me. So,
or it's just the age, right? As you get to your dirty 30s,
it must be.
Okay, so we have quite a bit of a jam-packed episode, which we didn't think was going to be a jam-packed episode, to be perfectly honest. But we're really glad to see that there's a lot of content. And of course, as always, we'll start with some reviews, news, and previews before heading into the meat, including some delicious NSFW content. As always, you can check the show notes for timestamps if you want to skip ahead, not that you should. And we're going to dive straight into what Edward and I have been reviewing over the last week. Okay, so there are a lot of TV shows on the agenda. Most notably, I started watching and almost finished the first season of Utopia, which is the US version of the British series. Now, what's interesting about this is I've actually seen the British series. So I'm going to talk a little bit about both and how they compare. But I'm sure most of you will know what I'm getting at when I eventually start talking about it.
Okay.
So Utopia is essentially, it's a very interesting show. It's about a dystopian future, which is quite interesting because given how it's called Utopia. And it's got to do with like the end of the world scenario whereby there is this comic which the conspiracy theorists in the world have been analyzing, and they believe that it harbors hints towards the end of the world and how the world's going to end. And, they believe that it's predicted a lot of diseases that have already come to fruition and so on and so forth. So what the show then does is it follows these protagonists who are these fans of this comic series, and they go after trying to get a brand new manuscript. So the original one was called Dystopia, and then Utopia is a new manuscript that just somehow comes about that they find. And everybody, and they really want to get their hands on it because it's basically the sequel to Dystopia, which really, predicted things like the Black Plague and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's got a very interesting premise. And what I will say is the US show is not all bad. Okay, it's done in a very interesting way. So as I said, I've watched both. Now they're both technically the same premise, but I would say that the US one is more clear as into what the show is actually trying to say, what the show is trying to divulge. Whereas the British one it's left a little bit more to your own thinking and devices. With that said, I would also say that the British show it's shot better because they leave a lot of it to mystery. And of course, the Brits, they never shy away from X-rated material. They were really able to, showcase the gravitas of the kills between. Like, I don't want to say too much because it's a very interesting and unusual premise. And because the whole story is derived from a comic book, but now in the real world, it's genuinely interesting. Now. The US one, like I said, is a little bit more clear in what Utopia is about, whereas the British one, they never really did. You never really knew what was going on. Like in the first couple of episodes, they're looking for Jessica Hyde, who in the Utopia comic is supposed to be the daughter of the scientist, the alleged scientist who's bringing the end of the world. And there's quite like a story behind it. And from what I can recall, because I watched the UK one many, many years ago, is it wasn't very clear as to what exactly was going on. It was very interesting. It was a good-looking series, but it never really told you what was happening. The US one is far more clear in that respect. So maybe it takes away a bit from the mystery of what's going on, But at the same time, there's still mystery because you see all of it happening, and now you're getting to grips with more of who these characters are. But there's still mystery behind why they're doing what they're doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
With that said, of course, it is Americanized. So it's a little bit puerile in certain respects, or illogical rather. So where the UK one follows more of a realistic portrayal of what's going on, the US one takes a couple of liberties, where like things happen and you're like, that's a bit unrealistic, Like, I mean, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't behave like these people, but hey, it's TV and it wouldn't be entertaining if there wasn't drama. So that's Utopia.
but like when you say the original one was British and the new one is American now, is it kind of like The Office where it's meant to be the same, or is it kind of more of a continuation? Because as you talk about the comic, it sounds like kind of a continuation.
No, so it's a total reboot.
Oh, okay.
So, cool. Like in other words, it's the same characters, it's the same everything, just done differently.
Okay, that's
the easiest way for me to say it.
Okay.
Okay, then now after that, as Edward will know, because I've been speaking to him about it in the last week or so, I'm a big fan of Grey's Anatomy. I've always enjoyed it since the very beginning. But, it's going into its 16th season, so it's not the series it once was. just to say it like it is. Where once upon a time it really used to be about the medicine with the drama and what was happening in their lives second. Whereas now it's more of a soapy than it is a medical drama. Yeah. And so I was looking for another medical show to watch, something that was maybe a little bit more like House, which with all due respect also eventually ended up being more drama than it was about the medicine. And I was looking and I tried a few shows, and then I came across a brand new NBC show, which is actually Canadian, weirdly enough. So I guess NBC just got the rights to show it in the States, called Transplant. And it's all about a Syrian refugee who now lives in Canada. And he was actually a qualified doctor in Syria. But now, obviously, he has to redo his life in America, because there's that whole thing of how different countries don't regard certain countries' degrees as being valid, etc., etc. So it's all about how this doctor needs to rebuild his life in Canada at this new hospital. And I think what I like most about the show, and Edward will agree with me here, is that it's very real. Now, I know that's strange to say, because it's not like I'm a doctor. It's not like I'm working in a medical room or, in the hospital or anything like that. But what I mean by that is the way that it's shot the way that they portray a hospital is super believable. And by this, I mean, just as a great example is, when they were doing things like resuscitating people, I noticed a lot of elements to how they were doing it that is just totally absent from other TV shows. Things that I'm watching and I'm like, oh, wow, that makes sense. Of course they'd have to do that first. But, in other TV shows that are quite long running, it's kind of just like, do the compressions and
or get all the Hollywood stuff done.
300, Yes, exactly. So from that perspective, it's so refreshing. And better still is how it has a lot of house built into it. Because, there's obviously a genius surgeon and he's now taking 2 or 3 residents under his wing, and they're specifically working in the trauma department, the emergency department. So they're not specializing just yet in things like cardiothoracics or, neurology or anything like that yet. They're literally on the emergency floor, okay?
Yeah.
So they have to be good at everything, basically. And it's incredibly interesting just the way that they've done it and the way they've approached it. It's honestly so refreshing. And I implore anyone out there, if you enjoy watching medical dramas, for lack of a better term, do give Transplant a go. It's good, in my opinion anyway. Now, what I will admit though, where it doesn't, not necessarily falls apart a bit, but where it is a bit like, is when they sort of try to deal with the whole fact that, he is an immigrant. And so it deals with the fact that he has to look after his sister and, they had to leave his parents behind and he has PTSD from that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's nice to see that aspect of it. And I do like the fact that there's a portrayal of immigrants, because goodness knows most Western countries, especially those who have had immigrants, America is a great example how it was built on the backs of immigrants. Okay. So, this kind of a perspective is really good. I just don't know if they're really doing it justice. Because sometimes, something will happen and you're looking at this and you're a bit like, it's very dramatized. That's basically where I'm getting at, more so than anything else. But that aside, it's genuinely a good show. And the drama, again, is realistic. So in Grey's Anatomy, even now in the 16th season, no one ever communicates with each other. So I'm busy watching season 16 now and I've forgotten the doctors' names, but the one doctor is now pregnant and she finds out that it might be another doctor's child, despite the fact that she's with another doctor. And I'm like, why isn't she just upfront about this? And she's 4 weeks from giving birth and she hasn't told anybody. I'm like, what? How? Anyway, so in Transplant, it's far more realistic. In the sense of, I almost felt like they were poking fun at other shows because the relationships are real. This one's going through something and they'll just talk about it and then it's resolved in 30 seconds and then they move away.
Hey, you're a bitch.
It's cool,
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need 2 episodes to deal with the situation, So it's very, very good. It's called Transplant, and if you like medical dramas, I would say definitely watch it. Moving on to the 2nd season of The Boys. Gosh damn, y'all. If you are not watching this superhero show, you are doing your life wrong. Okay? It is the best superhero show on TV, bar none. Sure, it's not pandering to kids, and thank goodness it's not. Because let's be real here, okay? We've all watched specifically the Marvel movies and even the DC Universe movies, right? Now, we all remember Superman in Man of Steel, right? Do y'all remember the massive buildings he destroyed? Because I do. Now, of course, they didn't show any of of what happened to those people who got crushed. At least in The Boys, we see it. Heads explode, torsos get ripped in half, because these are super beings, okay?
It's gruesome, to say the least.
Yes, and in addition to that, a villain is really a villain. They aren't holding back their punches. If they're gonna punch you, your head gonna be flying. Okay, so
gonna be gone.
The Boys is it's just so refreshing, and better still is, as good as the first season was, the 2nd season does such a spectacular job of touching on real world events. So it's just fascinating to watch because it's so OTT, but then it's not over the top if you look at what's happening in America right now with politics.
That's the worst part of it all.
I know, that's the thing. So like, I'm watching this and I'm just like, whoa. And then I'm like, but this is real though.
2 years ago, you would have been like, that's shit. And now you're like, oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That
Yes, exactly.
that hits home.
And look, there's a lot of really good twists and turns in the second season. And what I will admit though is that the first 2 episodes are very slow. Obviously it's got to do with, resolving what happened at the end of season 1 and then of course setting up what's going on in season 2. So it takes a bit of time, but damn, once it gets into its stride, is it so good. There's so much to unpack. I don't want to give anything away because there's a lot of like genuine surprises that happen throughout the show. And specifically with regards to Stormfront, the new hero that gets introduced. Now, I'm not saying anything, but gosh damn, is she a character you love to hate? And honestly, you've got to watch.
All I'll say is going into season 2, I already was annoyed by Stormfront. I hated what they showed of her in the trailers. And she looks like someone you just want to kick in the face.
Wait, she looks like an SJW, right? Is that what you're getting at?
She kind of does, yeah.
Okay. I'm not gonna say.
Yeah, don't say anything because you've done watching.
Other than nothing is what it seems. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I kind of my little knowledge about the comic books tells me she's very, very much. No, okay, no, I might spoil it.
No, don't. Just in case there are listeners who haven't seen anything yet. So rather keep it to a minimum. What I will say though is I am 100% looking forward to season 3 because of the way season 2 ended. And all I'm going to say from that is one word: Homelander.
Yeah. On that topic though, I've been spoiled about what Anthony Starr was told for season 3. And I don't know if I'm going to say it on the podcast now, but
no,
I kind of know.
We'll speak about it in private.
Yeah. I kind of know where the end of season 2 is going to go and where season 3 is going to go. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that
because I know you haven't seen it yet. So until
I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I know it's bad. I would have been done by now, but shit happens. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Hey, listen.
Excited.
Our listeners are still waiting for your review of Velocipaster and the Guardians.
Worry.
Okay,
it's
only been like 30 episodes.
It feels like it's coming. I do feel bad about that. So
now on to a second season of another series. We recently watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is technically the sequel, if you could call it that, to The Haunting of Hill House. Now, essentially, The Haunting of series is anthology-based. That's technically where it seems that they're going with this. We have, I think, like 2 episodes left to finish it. And so I don't think there is a direct connection. So far, there hasn't been anything to the original one. It just seems like a wholly new story, despite the fact that the actors are the same. And let me tell you, it's good. It's very, very different though. So where the first season had a lot of like mystery behind the mom character, right? Which eventually unraveled as the series came to a close, and how the house was actually the main entity, etc., etc. Yeah. I don't really know where they're going in the second one, because it's very, very different. Now, there are certain things which have already been revealed, but honestly speaking, you could have guessed that via the first 3 or 4 episodes. It was kind of obvious as to what was going on. So I'll say that possibly it's a little bit more predictable than the first season was, but at the same time, still engrossing, good enough to want to keep watching and seeing where it goes and how it's going to unfold. So, from that perspective, it's good. It's good. We're very much enjoying it. And I would say if you enjoyed the first season, you'll enjoy the second one. Also, with that in mind, I've noticed there are less jump scares. It's more psychological horror now. So, in the first season, there were a lot of ghosts hidden in the backgrounds. You know,
I was
and
about
if
to
you
say.
if you didn't notice them, you would have just, not thought about it.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more blatant in the second season, as in, you can actively see that there's someone or something behind them in the back and that. And to be perfectly honest with you, that's made it a lot harder and worse to watch because now you're like, is there going to be a jump scare? What's happening? But there never is. But the fact is, they've built it up to the point because you've seen these things in the background now. Now you never know. You never know if by just turning the camera, there's going to be something that. Oh, and I'm getting goosies just thinking about it. So, like from that perspective, it's done very well and good. And again, I am genuinely curious to see what they're going to do because. Okay, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to say anything else because it will ruin the major plot point. So yeah, it's good. Watch it. You'll dig it. Now that I've finished speaking about 500 million TV series, because as you can tell, that's all that I do. Edward is going to take us through Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, I know that's a bit odd, given how the game released at the end of 2019. But this is the thing. Edward has never played Pokemon before. So this is his first ever Pokemon game. And I'm really curious to know how he enjoyed it. Edward, to take it away.
So for context, I haven't played Pokemon in a long while. So I haven't played since Gen 2, to be fair.
So basically, you've never played Pokemon, okay?
Essentially, that's never played. So I've only finished Blue and Gold, and I played a bit of Emerald. That's it.
Oh, but that's not so bad. So I mean, it's technically not your new. Like, I mean,
I mean, that's long ago. Okay, that's a good 15 years ago now, and I'm kind of one of those people that played into the that got sold into the bandwagon of hating on Pokemon Sword and Shield. Because
fair enough, yeah. Fair enough.
I even released an article on Vaimers last year, which detailed all the Gen 1 and 2 Pokemon that's not going to be in Sword and Shield. And people were talking about it looking bad, and it has bad distance, texture popping and stuff. And I was like,
basically, it was just super disappointing from a visual perspective.
Yes. Now, going into the game, I was like, whatever. And then I played for 2 hours. And then I played for 10 hours. And now I'm 25 hours in. And I can't put the game down.
And you can't stop, right? Like Pringles.
No, it is so good. I don't know what the people are on about. The game looks good. It plays amazingly well. I've got 4 badges now. And it's amazing. I really, really like the game.
A veritable Pokemon master in training.
Yeah, so it's it gets a bit difficult when you try to catch new Pokemon when all your Pokemon are level 40. So
yeah, that's just like you're killing them all.
Yeah, that's a bit rage-inducing. Otherwise, it's very, very fun. It's exactly what you would expect from the previous generations, just 3D now. That's all.
Yeah.
So I like it. I really like it a lot. And also the Dynamax aspect is it's kind of, it's not needed. I feel like
it's gimmicky.
It's a very gimmicky thing. But that's the new big thing about the Galar region, and I like it. Again, the game is cool. So yeah, I'll be reviewing that probably by the time this podcast releases. So yeah.
Well, you actually reviewing 2 things. So you're reviewing the main base game of Sword and Shield, and then also the Crown Tundra expansion, right?
No. Okay, so I'm reviewing Pokemon Sword, and then the Isle of Armor expansion.
Armor. Okay, yes. Okay, so the next one is Crown Tundra. Okay,
that's the one that's still coming. Yes. Yeah.
Which you'll probably end up reviewing anyway.
Probably. So it's a good thing I'm getting through it now.
Yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of video games, there was a trailer released this week for one of Edward's favorite franchises. And I'm genuinely curious to see what you have to say about it, because my opinion is not a good one.
Okay, look. When you hear about Mila Jovovich and Paul Wes Anderson, you immediately think Resident Evil.
Oh.
Okay? And we all know how that went. Okay?
We all know what to expect from those films, okay?
Exactly. So, this trailer for Monster Hunter... I almost said World. It's not Monster Hunter World. It's just Monster Hunter. It looks phenomenal, in my opinion. Now, in terms of what my first Monster Hunter game was admittedly Monster Hunter World. And then I went back and played a bit of previous ones that I managed to get my hands on, considering the generations and consoles. Now, it looks exactly like Monster Hunter World would look, had it been given more time, I guess. If it had been on the new generations of consoles, it would look like this movie. It's phenomenal. And now I'm putting together a little post about all the monsters we can see in the trailer and what we think will be in the movie. And I'm quite excited about that one. So, yeah.
Okay, so again, the difference between myself and Edward is I watched the trailer and I was like, this is a hot pile of garbage, and I did not watch it. So just in terms of how we value things differently, and it's nice to have differences of opinion. Edward is somebody who would give a Resident Evil movie an 8. I would give it a 4. So that's kind of like the differences between us. And we actually had a bit of it was a very heated debate when Justice League initially came out.
Oh gosh.
Because when it comes to Famous, we pride ourselves in our opinions and scoring and stuff like that. And it was the one and only time where I was of the very strong opinion that Edward's score was wrong. Because I think at the time, I think he wanted to give the film like an 8, and I was like, no, you are not giving that film an 8. I don't care how much you loved it. There is no way that Justice League deserves that. So after many heated debates and discussions, we eventually, I think, what did we settle on? Was it 7 or 6?
I think it was 7 or something. Yeah,
I think it was a 7. Yeah, and then of course after that. I was a little bit more rational after my emotions got hold of me, and I just told Ed, was like, look, this will be the one and only time I will ever ask you to adjust your review score. and it's basically been like that ever since. Like now it's like whatever he gets, I'm just like, oh, okay, fine.
You're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah. But that's what makes us such a great team, is that we have very strong relationship. We can just like bounce these things off each other, and we have these discussions, and there have been some good times in the past where when I'm editing Edward's work, I'll be like, look, I've read this, but this is what you're saying. Is this really what you mean? And then Edward will be like, hold on, let's talk about this, and then we'll talk about it, and he'll be like, okay, cool, no, I get you. Let's make this adjustment, or we'll change it this way, and it's really good. It's actually quite cool. I'm giving everybody some insight into how we work.
Yeah. So. See, the thing is, when I write, and I'm sure you do this too. You write what you think. You don't think about a score until you have to put down the score, and then you're like, oh shit, maybe I feel it was like a 7. And then that's where your editing comes in, and you're like, okay, but it sounds like an 8. Are you sure about the 7? And then I'm like, I think you're right on this one. And it's
well, more often than not, I'm trying to find out if his scores are lower than what he's given.
because I tend to score high. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, cool. So that's basically. Oh wait, no. There's one more thing. Which we can't talk about.
Yes. By next week, you'll know.
Is it next week? No, I think it's...
Yes, it's next week.
No. Okay, hold on. No. The week after next week, you, our audience, if you're observant enough on the video, and if you listen to what we say, will know. But next week, Edward and I will know. Oh,
sorry, yes, the week after next. I'm already...
Yeah, I know. I had to just check the dates as well. So
Yeah.
it's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly exciting. And we are so grateful for the opportunity. But again, we have signed NDAs and we're not allowed to say anything until the 30th of October. So that's 2 weeks time episode. So if you're interested to know, definitely stay tuned. We wish we could divulge more, but ironclad NDAs be ironclad.
Yeah. To just have your eyes on episode 38. That's
exactly,
all I'll say.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Going straight into the content. This is a very small thing that I'm going to talk about quickly, but I thought it was interesting, and it's funny because look, we live in 2020, okay, where things are modern and digital, and it's still strange to me how some companies will require that you print out, physically sign, scan in, and then send back a document.
Yes. It's annoying AF.
Yeah, exactly. And it boggles the mind because I've had it before where like the document comes in, so I'm like, cool, open it on my iPad, take my Apple Pencil, do all the things, and I send it back, and they're like, no, sorry, you have to and I'm like, you have to print it. I'm like, why?
Please
I literally
fax it
just
to
signed
us.
it. Yeah.
What's a fax?
Like, oh my gosh, that's so true. Anyway, so what is cool about this is it's this service, and it's called scanyourpdf.com. Now, fine, it doesn't sound like much, right? You're a bit like, oh, well, why would I want to scan it on a web page? I can just, scan it on my computer or take a picture. No. What this service does is it takes your pristine digital document and makes it look like you've printed it out and scanned it.
What?
Yes. So if you ever are dealing with a company that is like, nuh-uh, you got to print out, sign, scan it in, and send it back to us. Now you can just be like, haha, bitch, no.
Like I did
I'm going to do this on my iPad. Yeah.
Like-
Submit it to scanyourpdf.com. It will make it look like you scanned it in, including all of the, the crinkles and like the darkness,
lines,
stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. It's actually like, it's super cool. And it makes me think of that meme, modern problems require modern solutions. So
That's
it's
cool.
it's honestly like it's so interesting that this is what we've had to do, but at the same time, honestly, I wish companies would just, join the rest of the populace in 2020. Who scans? I mean, come now. If I'm getting a digital document, I'm going to send a digital signed copy back. Okay.
The worst part is when an IT company or a connections company wants you to do this.
I just had this with TT Connect. Oh, I don't. You know what? I don't even want to get into dramas with it. They're the fiber company at the property, and they wanted a printed out signed copy. I'm like, y'all bitches are a fiber company. What are you? What? Anyway. So,
Yeah.
So, if anybody does use the service, or if you're like really happy to learn about it, let us know, because I was like, hell's yeah. I've now saved this as a favorite in my web browser. So if I ever need to change a document, I can. And I thought, let me share it with you all because it's super useful. Now, something else actually the next topic is actually Edward's topic. I don't know. I was actually going to leave it into mine, but I'm going to let Edward take it away.
Well, yours will technically lead into mine as well, to be fair.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I figured, well, yours is there, and I'd rather you talk a bit. So
okay, no, that's fine. You take a breath.
drink
some
my
coffee.
cold coffee.
Yeah, mine's already finished. So
I need that ember mug, Edward. I need that ember mug.
Okay, so as you all remember, at least those who are not new listeners, hello, new listeners. As old listeners and viewers, I suppose, will remember, we spoke about eels going missing in the past.
Yes,
or not missing,
about how
but
nobody knows how they breed.
Yes, because they can't be tracked.
The mystery of eels. Listen, no. Our conclusion was that they are kaiju. Don't forget.
Yes, they are kaiju sperm or something. Now, Now, turns out that murder hornets is eluding scientists as well. So
Wait,
murder hornets. Yeah.
Hold on. Murder hornet.
Yes. So
but that's not because it's murdering us, right?
no, it's because they murder colonies and colonies of honeybees. One hornet can decimate an entire colony. So that's how bad it is.
Okay, fine. So the name is deserving then, because as we know, Einstein said, when the bees go, we go. So
yes, essentially.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're disappearing. I just... why aren't we
no, I'm sure
funding this?
no, the honeybees are getting revenge. See, so this is the thing. Now, I know this is a bit different, because like I've heard of killer bees.
Yes, African killer bees. Yeah.
But they're not, I mean, it's just because they're aggressive. It's not because they actually like kill people. They're just more aggressive than normal honeybees.
Well, actually, the story about the African killer bee is actually quite interesting. Turns out that bees in Europe and the US never was aggressive. You know, bumblebees and normal honeybees, they're all just normal bees, or they were normal bees, until a scientist brought African bees to the US and they escaped. And they bred with UE and US bees, and that bred the African killer bee.
Just for a second there, I thought that you were going to say that they were genetically engineered, but it's just breeding. How incredible is that?
Yeah, they crossbred the bees. So technically, I guess it's biologically engineered.
Okay, so we made a super bee, basically.
They made a combination between the African bee and the US bee, yes. And that created the African killer bee. As far as I know, obviously I'm not a scientist. And
yeah.
Since then, bee deaths or human deaths by bee have skyrocketed into the oblivion. Yeah.
Oh.
So it's all thanks to this one guy.
but that's because of their aggression, correct?
Yes.
In other words, like a normal honeybees wouldn't necessarily attack you, but
not at all.
Killer bees will go for you. They'll actually, like, if you come in their space,
yes,
they'll literally attack you. Yeah.
Normally, even the African killer bee is they're quite docile until you invade their space, and then they build a grudge, and then they go for you. Which is where the Hollywood things comes from, that they chase you. Now, anyway, we're diverging.
Okay, yes. Back to Hornets.
Yes. So the Asian hornet is called the murder hornet because of its distinction of decimating honeybee. I don't know. Colonies.
Populations.
There we go.
Colonies.
Now, scientists have been tracking them for a while now. The first prominent track happened, I think, last year, where they glued a tracker to a murder hornet and they let him loose. Turns out the glue was bad, the tracker fell, and it didn't give them anything. Okay, so the second attempt, just last week, I'll have you know, literally from this recording last week, the second attempt was that they put the tracker on the bee using dental floss. Now, I don't know why they're using this weird-ass household items. Anyway, turns out that the bee, they let him loose in a apple grove, and after a little while, he sped into a heavily vegetated area and then disappeared. And then they found the tracker on the ground, just laying there. And that's exactly what happened with the previous one.
Why can't they just use super glue or something?
I don't know. It's weird.
No, man.
And
these, you know what this sounds like? These scientists sound like they're self-sabotaging to get more funding. Okay.
Well,
I mean, really.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, these are scientists from the Washington State Department of Agriculture. And for some reason, they just can't figure out why the killer bees keep losing their trackers. So
it's because they can't track them.
To me. Well, because they keep using bad glue.
No, it's just they're just doing it wrong. Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not. I don't want to say what I think about these scientists. Okay. Rather, what I'd like to do is speak about the scientists who've been doing dragonfly research.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So this to me, I thought was very interesting. So now, when you think of bugs and stuff, dragonflies are docile, right? You look at a dragonfly and you're like, oh, it's beautiful. And they come in a variety of like really majestic colors. Now, the thing is, when you consider all of that, right? And you look at the dragonfly, you think it's docile and it's cute. And I mean, well, for an insect, it's cute. Like, don't get me wrong. I'll still try and swat it away because I don't know what it wants in my face.
Oh, I
but,
love the dragonfly.
I mean, look, they're generally beautiful. So,
yeah.
The interesting thing about this and the research that they've put into it, it turns out that if you look at every single creature we have on the planet, well, known creature, right? According to science, at any rate, dragonflies are the most lethal and deadly.
How? I thought that's spiders or something.
So look, not to us as humans, but in terms of hunting, they are some of the most proficient predators in the world, and they have a 95% success rate for anything that they go after, which is incredible. Because, when you think of predators, right, you think of, like, let's say the lion, right?
Yes.
It's a massive feline, and they you got to be careful. To be careful of them if you're in the wild or whatever the case is. But only 1 in 4 of their hunts is ever successful. So that's a 25% success rate, which is very low, right? Then, of course, you have sharks, which we know have possibly evolved from the Megalodon. Oh, by the way, interesting fact about Megalodon while we're here. Scientists have... this is just something that I know. Scientists have sort of postulated that Megalodons existed because they would eat all of their other offspring in the womb. So one like shark would eat all of the other offspring and then come out as like a super shark, and thus the Megalodon. Anyway, It's just a hypothesis for now. Okay, right. Back to what I'm saying about sharks. So they've been around for millions and millions of years, and even then, half of their attempts at being a predator and attacking are only 50% successful. So that's really not low, but like 50%. So it's either you eat or you don't eat 50% of the time.
That's bad.
So dragonflies are 95%. And they're truly fascinating creatures because, as I mentioned before, you look at them and you see they're like soft and they're fragile, and we all think they look really pretty, but they are voracious predators. I mean, as I mentioned before, 95% success rate. That's almost 100%. It means that anything a dragonfly goes after, it's gonna get and it's going to kill. All right?
That's
and worse
scary,
still is yes, they do all of this while in the air, and they don't even have to stop. So they go, they grab, they eat, and then they move on. Straight away. It's like boom. It's like boom, boom, boom. It's not even like, I'm going to take this and I'm going to go chill somewhere and I'm going to eat. No, they just do it all at once. And to make it even more like scary is the scientists have discovered that dragonflies essentially have bottomless stomachs in the sense of they don't stop eating as long as there is prey around.
Wow. But
now,
so they grab. So they grab onto their prey.
Yes. Okay. Now this is where it gets like really interesting. So it turns out that they have like a circuit of basically 60 neurons, right, which directly connects the dragonfly's brain to the flight motor center in the thorax. And this neural connection allows the dragonfly to be super, super optimal at tracking moving targets and calculating the intercept trajectories. And it can even adjust its own path in a full 360-degree movement. So it's not even just forward and back or left and right. It's full 360 degrees. In fact, it's actually so incredible that they've discovered that the dragonfly keeps its prey almost 100% in its eye lock. In other words, when it goes after something, it never loses sight of it until it catches it.
Wow. That's some super villain shit.
So like,
Wow.
I mean, the interesting thing about this is that the scientists have also looked at it, and they said that it's very similar to the way humans work with our attention. Now, for those of you who've been listening for a long time, you'll remember we spoke about multitasking in episode 22, whereby humans don't actually multitask. We are just very good at switching our attention very quickly. So it turns out that that's what the dragonfly does. And that's actually why it's so proficient at being able to pinpoint prey, go after it, and kill it.
Wow. No.
So, look, all I'm thinking about this is like, imagine some villainous scientist decides to blow these things up, to like 100 times or even 1,000 times their size. We wouldn't be able to get away from them.
That's the thing. Like, I'm reading ahead, and it says that they're able to reach speeds of 50 kilometers an hour with only 3 wing beats, dive, fly backward and upside down, and pivot 360, like you said. This is crazy. Now, I'm wondering,
they're kind of like the creature whereby if you were like legit a villain and you had like billions of dollars at your disposal and you wanted to create some sort of a creature that is unstoppable, this would be what you'd model it after.
Exactly. Like, they always say laser sharks. Okay, fine. Get your laser sharks. But also laser butterflies or dragonflies.
No, listen, laser sharks are only going to work 50% of the time. What you want is a dragonfly for that 95% hit ratio.
There we go. Optimal. Now, I wonder what their grip is like per body weight compared to other creatures. Since they catch
I would
prey.
imagine it's quite high, right? Now, bear in mind, this study namely looked at dragonflies versus flies, which is maybe, let's call it like 500% smaller than the size of a dragonfly, right? Yeah. Plus minus. So I'm not entirely sure, like we know like an ant, for example, is super strong, right? It's like 100, can lift like 100 times or 1,000 times its weight or something ridiculous.
Yes.
I would imagine that a dragonfly has something similar. But more importantly, the whole thing about this is not so much the strength of the dragonfly, but just how proficient it is at what it does. And how...
Yeah, but...
Guys, 95%! Gosh. A 95% success rate. Do you know how high that is?
So, and what do they eat, though? Just flies? Or anything?
All sorts of... No, it's basically like... Well, things that are smaller than them, I guess. It would be like little flying insects and stuff like that,
Okay.
I didn't look too much more into it, but it was just... it was interesting because it's like one of the observations was that they enjoy their fresh meat, which obviously would be from another bug or something.
Yeah.
But like, imagine blowing this up 1,000 times and then set it on the human population. It would be unstoppable.
That's the end. That's the War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
Gosh.
The Dragonfly world.
Yeah.
It would, you know what it would do? It would spell doom for all of us.
Oh. It would. And then it would inspire awesome games.
Yes, of course, naturally.
So,
you're welcome for my segue.
So, yeah, as we all know, Doom is the wonderful game that keeps on, I wouldn't say giving. But just being on everything. In the tech world, okay, something isn't something until it can run Doom. We all know this. Now, a few episodes ago, we spoke about how a pregnancy test actually played Doom. This time,
correct.
We have it on a little Raspberry Pi Zero, powered by potatoes.
Oh my gosh! Of all the things, why am I not surprised?
Things. Now, this is quite fascinating, actually. As we all know, potatoes are smelly and messy, especially if they have current running through them. So, turns out that one YouTuber actually tried running Doom on potatoes, and he managed
and succeeded. That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So the YouTuber in question's name is Equalo, I think it's Equalo, and his entire
Potato
channel
Equalo.
focuses on potato Equalo, tomato. It focuses on all kinds of interesting project. Listen to me now, projects.
Listen, you aren't Australian, mate, so you better not put on an Australian accent. You're very much South African, so don't say projects.
I've been watching a lot of Tiny House Big Living, which is amazing in its own right, but that's beside the point. And that guy says projects. Yeah. And yeah. Anyway, all these projects revolve around these kinds of stuff, figuring out how you would go about
That's cool. That's
getting
very
it to
cool.
work. And yeah, after he found that russet potatoes or russet potatoes give the most power compared to others, he started slicing them in half and connecting them to a Raspberry Pi Zero installed with Doom. And turns out that about 770 potato bits are needed to power 100 milliamps or 4.7 volts, which is just enough
just when
to
I
play
thought
Doom.
that potatoes could be the answer to our power issues.
Well, technically it can. We'll just need many
like
warehouses
1,000 potatoes
full
to run a Raspberry Pi. No, this is not.
to run 100 milliamp. Yeah, it's bad, but also fascinating. Oh.
That's
and then,
awesome. That's
on the
honestly super
topic
cool.
of inventions and cool projects, though, I found a guy that built a real life lightsaber.
Oh yes, I saw that.
Yes.
I saw that.
Now, obviously, building the lightsaber hilt, everyone's done that before. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson built his own vape that looks like a lightsaber, which is amazing in its own right. But now this guy, he actually built a lightsaber that if you turn it on, it has a blade coming out.
Okay, but I mean, it doesn't. I mean, okay. Now, my understanding of these things is it still has to be contained, right? In other words, there has to be an end point. They can't make it stop without there being like a.
This one doesn't have an end point. It's because it's not a laser like a lightsaber. It's actually plasma, or actually propane, which is oxidized.
Wow.
And obviously, that only goes so far until it vanishes into normal air.
Okay.
So it looks like a normal lightsaber. Now, in canon, it actually looks more like a protosaber, which is what he went with. Now, the YouTubers called
you mean before we know what lightsabers are? So it was like way before.
Yes. Yeah, proto blades were the original lightsabers with external power sources.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Now, this guy, he essentially built his own protosaber with his own battery-powered, hilt. And if you press it, it's powered by propane and oxygen, which obviously makes the flame. And then when added with salts, it changes colors. So in the video, we'll link to.
That's so cool.
Yes, in the video we'll link to. He makes it green, blue, red, and even amber, just by using a different kind of salt.
What I love so much about this, is that in the canon they use force crystals. So you're technically still using a crystal, right? But it's just a salt crystal.
I guess
that's so cool.
There you go.
That's so cool.
And yeah, I just found it fascinating, and because we sometimes mention cool inventions, and this is the coolest of the lot. So,
well, look, what's cool about this is obviously you have to use your hands, right? Yes. I mean, obviously the blade is in your hand. Well, yes. Edward, today I would like to speak to you about human microevolution.
Okay. Is it like that
so
thing,
we
don't have this?
Yes, exactly. So what Edward is pointing at in the video, for those of you who are listening, is like one of the most simple like evolutionary tests is where you take your fingers and you sort of you put your thumb and your pinky together and you bring your hand forward, right? So you'd sort of like do that. And if you have a tendon that pops out through the bottom, or rather, if you can see a tendon, it means you haven't evolved as far as other people have, because essentially that tendon is no longer needed. So it's been removed. Okay. So yes, Edward, you're 100% correct. That would actually go with microevolution. And the reason why I was mentioning hands just now, and with your excellent example, is because one of the few signs in the last recent 250 years that doctors have picked up is how there is actually a unique artery that normally disappears in the womb, but which is now starting to be present in more people who are being born. It's called the median artery, which normally, like I said, disappears in the womb before birth, but now people are being born with it, thus giving you more blood flow to your hands. Because think about it. What do we do?
It makes you
computers,
more optimal.
It's devices, we aren't at NSFW yet, but you know what else you use your hands for? So now it's really, really cool because, they've been doing research into this and that. And they're saying that a lot of these changes are quite predominant since the 19th century. And in the last 250 years, they're seeing it more and more. And there's even more things like how more people today are being born without wisdom teeth. And as a result, smaller jaws, which means smaller mouths, which is not necessarily a good thing. But anyway, and they're also getting more bones in their legs and feet. So it's actually just like incredible how these little micro evolutions are happening, and scientists are able to see it,
That's cool.
And with that in mind, we have come to our NSFW. I'm sorry,
with
I
more
couldn't help myself.
bones in
There were
mind.
too many insinuations in that microevolution thing for me to have kept on going. I had to.
Yeah, I still want to ask about the little ear hole thing that people are being born with nowadays.
Okay, look, that one I can't speak to, but like this whole microevolution thing, it's super cool, and you can just imagine what's actually going to happen in the future. I mean, the fact that we're having extra arteries in our limbs because we're using them more, I presume because of technological advances and other things.
Makes you more optimal. Other things.
I can do it now. We're in the NSFW section.
Exactly.
Now, of course, now that we're here, Edward, it's so funny. Earlier this week, I just get this random text, and he's like, "That sad moment in your life when you see your favorite porn star on Pornhub retiring." And I was like, "What?" I was like,
yes. Okay.
How often are you on this that you have a favorite?
So, ladies and gentlemen, we start this segment with bad news. Porn star, adult filmmaker Ryan Creamer is retiring.
Oh,
and
I love that name, by the way.
It's an amazing name. I think that's just coincidence, by the way. So what Ryan Creamer is actually known for is wholesome porn, which is literally not explicit in the least. It's
you know what? Hold on. It's not even porn.
Come on. Even. It's just a filmmaker on Pornhub. That's literally all it is.
But
now,
yes, it doesn't matter.
Listen.
You know how often videos end up on Pornhub, okay?
Yes.
That are not even related to the title.
Well, it turns out that Ryan Creamer, he started joining Pornhub just to see how easy it is to make an account on the website and to get popular. Turns out that if you do something unique, you become popular really, really, really quickly. Now, Ryan Creamer essentially pioneered the term wholesome porn, which is just videos where he looks at the camera and he's being wholesome. Like in one of his videos, he literally just tells the world to have a good day. Or in another video, which is titled something about doing something with the secretary, it's just him and his secretary being in an office, just talking over the phone. And in his last final video called The Money Shot. Now, we all know what the money shot is on Pornhub.
Oh.
Now, in his last video, he just gives the viewer a $20 bill and says, listen, use it wisely. with a big smile on his face. And I'm so sad to see the guy go. But yeah, he's retiring after 2 years.
Is there a reason why? I mean, he's doing like a really good job, and I'm assuming he's getting paid handsomely for it, or not?
Oh, I think he made a lot of money because he got brand deals and stuff out of this. But
That's amazing,
the actual reason why he's retiring is he just wants to move on from all of this. He just wants to do new things in his life. And yeah, kudos
we
to
know
him.
what he wants to do, and it's not wholesome. That's what. Actually, let me tell you. I bet you, if he pivoted to actual porn, he would be massive, regardless of what he's packing. I can tell you that now.
I mean, with videos like intense scissoring makes multiple women come, people will flock to that video. Now, obviously, his actual video is just him cutting out a cool paper thing. But yeah, he'll make millions. I think he has the makings, and he's not gonna.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, end of an era, hey? Oh, well, end of.
Yeah,
I guess you can't call 2 years an era, but let's end of a genre. End of a genre.
End of a genre. Yeah. So, yeah.
Now, speaking. Now, still, obviously, of course, because we're in the NSFW section. This was something that was meant to appear last week, but we just ran out of time. And so we've thrown it into this week, but it's cool because it relates to one or two other things as far as I understand. And Edward's going to talk about this. Now, we all know how life has changed thanks to COVID and lockdowns and whatever, and how, naturally we have to wear masks. And if you're not wearing a mask, you're an idiot. Okay, it's really that simple. We've spoken about it a lot on this podcast, about how you should be doing it and the benefits of it and so on and so forth. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to introduce you to masks for your vag.
Yes. Now, a vagina.
Is this something else we're going to buy? Are we adding this to the list?
No, we're not going to buy this. This is... Okay, for context. Last week, we spoke a lot about scent and smells after doing the deed.
Yes.
Now, a vagina sheet mask came about because of those smells. Now, sheet masks are literally masks to cover something, as you know. A vagina sheet mask, though, is one of the most dumb things you can do with your vag. As a man who Googles these things a lot, please, ladies, don't do this. Don't wear vagina sheet masks. Mainly because, obviously, we all want to mask those smells. We all wear scented things. We all spray scent all over us just to smell good.
Yes.
A vagina sheet mask's entire purpose of being is to make you smell good and to not... to cover up those bad smells ladies might get when they're menstruating or when they're lactating.
So, look... You spoke about this quite a bit last week, and your major takeaway from that actually was, and I get now why you wanted this last week, but we just didn't have the time. But essentially, if you're at that point where you are buying a vagina sheet, a sheet mask to cover up a bad smell, you should be getting that checked out. Because now, of course, bear in mind, we're not being like for any smell, because I mean, you got to be realistic as well. Like, I mean, if you're going to go to the gym and you're going to come back, you're not going to smell good, obviously. If you're on your cycle for that period of the month, you're not going to smell good. That's not, you shouldn't be using one of those masks anyway. But what we're saying here is, if it's a prolonged thing, like you're looking after yourself and it's not from overexerting yourself or doing anything strenuous and so on and so forth, or it's not that time of the month, you should have it seen to, just in case.
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously, many people will want to buy into the sheet mask hype because they want to mask their smells. But the reason why you shouldn't.
You know what? Is this is yes? Okay. Sorry. Yeah. You carry on. I'll get to my point just now.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Carry on.
All I wanted to say is that, like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to smell good and having a nice scent or a smell. But something that people might not know is that that is where most of our pheromones come from. So
Yes.
if you're masking, like granted, pheromones are technically not detectable from a direct smell perspective. They kind of they waft into your body and you pick it up subconsciously, okay? But they're there for that specific reason. And it is something we actually spoke about quite a bit last week. So there are certain scents that really just shouldn't be covered up. We're not talking about that, though. We're talking about legit smell, right?
Yes. Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So when you're a bit sweaty, you'll start to smell. When you're
this is a dumb
on
product, Edward.
I know.
Why is this on the list?
Because this is a PSA to tell people not to buy into this hype. Because as we all know, especially women, their vaginas take care of themselves for the most part. As long as you keep it clean, it moisturizes itself, it takes care of itself, it sheds itself.
All sorts of things.
Exactly. And yeah, don't rely on external products to do that for you. Now, what you also should, or rather, speaking of down there, what something else I want to dive into is a bit of security in terms of sex toys.
Oh, this is such a good topic. Yes.
Now, sheet masks aside, something some men put on is not to mask scent, more so than to keep them from doing the deed, which is called a chastity belt. These go back.
You mean ladies?
Way back. No, men.
What? Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
The device you're going to talk about now is a men's one.
Yes.
Because you do know that traditionally, chastity belts were only for ladies.
I don't know that. Oh, all I do know is that
why. Look, because you know how skewed history is. Come now.
Yes.
You know, of all of the, various genders and races and so on and so forth, women have been, in my personal opinion, one of the most persecuted genres of human being, if you could even say genre, in history. And, regardless of your race or creed or whatever, as a woman, you've often been quite disadvantaged throughout history. And this is a great example of that, whereby because men run the world, or at least back in the day before equality, the onus was always on the lady. So if she got pregnant, it was her fault, not the man. It was always like, it's never, obviously I'm so glad things are very different today in 2020. But what I'm getting at is that, that's why chastity belts were created. It was so that the woman could control her urges. And for those of you who aren't watching the video, I'm literally have my hands up doing those informal quotes because it's ridiculous that this was even a thing back then.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you're telling me that there's a brand new one for guys.
Well, see, it's fascinating that you mention history because the only history I know is ancient Roman history, and women were highly regarded in that culture, and even then, back then, chastity belts for men existed. It was cages.
That is very interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Now, in today's day and age, obviously everything is smart. Everything has a Bluetooth connection or a Wi-Fi connection.
I don't know about that.
Well, turns out
look, just because a device is interconnected to the internet doesn't make it smart, Edward.
Smart, yes, I know, but that's what it's called. Like a smart vibrator. Literally, you can program macros into it. Is that smart? I don't know. Anyway, so the smart chastity belt. Turns out they can be hacked. So whether they are smart or not, smart people can hack into them.
But no, hold on. Now,
yes,
hacking is super important. It's something to be aware of, right? Okay,
yes.
Now the hacking on this though, is it wirelessly hacked or do you need physical access?
No, this is literally wireless hacking via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi.
What kind of crap product is this?
I don't know.
I mean, seriously.
Okay, so it turns out that obviously because of its smart nature, you can connect your phone to it with an app, and you can set a time on it, and you can set it to open up when it needs to.
And
Now,
specifically, you're saying that this is a men's chastity belt.
Yes, you put your PP into it, and it locks down. Okay, so so in other words, we'll put a picture up or whatever. We'll link to it, but in the image they have a carrot sticking out of it because it's literally you put your penis in there and you lock it down. So what this does is obviously chastity belts are meant to keep you from having sex, from I guess being chaste or whatever it's called, chaste with a T-E. Now, a UK security firm called Pen Test Partners, they've been testing all kinds of sex toys over the years, and their newest findings come from the QUI Smart Chastity Belt, which they found has a security flaw in their Bluetooth connectivity, which is not secured at all. In other words, anyone can connect to it as long as they're nearby with their phones or with whatever.
That's such poor implementation, really.
Yes. And the worst part is once one device is connected, another device can't connect to it until the original device disconnects. So when someone put their chastity belt on and they went to the mall or whatever to keep themselves from being pervs or I don't know, someone in the mall can connect to them because obviously your device will disconnect. And they can set the timer to indefinitely be locked. And then as long as they're connected to their device, the original owner can't connect to it and set them to, please unlock, I want to pee now or whatever.
Well, that was actually one of the questions that I had was like, you can't do anything with it on.
No, it's closed.
Urinate.
Yeah, you can't get
there's
hard
so
with it on.
Issues with this though, because you know as a man that anything can trigger you. Doesn't even have to be erotic or anything like that. It could just be needing to pee. You know,
it can be just a bit of tiredness. Yeah,
exactly. So this doesn't take that into consideration? So what, you're going to cut off blood flow?
I guess.
Stupid.
See, chastity belts are stupid to begin with because they're meant to keep you from getting the urge, and the urge in the most traditional sense is getting hard. Chastity belts, they refuse you from doing that. In some cases, I've heard it hurts painfully if you're a new user to a chastity belt or a new wearer, I guess. And turns out they can be hacked. So even more reason not to wear them. Now, in my research, this is something that I found that came through on Reddit during when I wanted to speak about this chastity belt originally. Now, I found this amazing article from mikeormick.com where they essentially explain what can happen to devices that get hacked in this way, especially sex toys and smart
infinite pleasure.
Well, in terms of the QUI smart chastity belt, maybe not. Now, I'm going to pose a scenario to you. A few years ago, a company called FlexiSpy, which is a monitoring software for electronics, they introduced a thing called FlexiFlesh, which was meant to be the world's first app for strangers to hack into sex toys. Now, now essentially, it allowed people to hack into sex toys and control it remotely to... Now, this is all an April Fool's stunt, okay? I think it was in 2017.
Okay.
But spawning off of this April Fool's stunt, a lot of people began thinking, like, what if this were real? And this is what spawned...
Naturally.
This is what spawned Pen Test the pen test partners to start testing sex toys and their security. And turns out that, not only can you keep people from opening their chastity belts, but you can actually steal valuable personal information from it. Now, since this has gone on, many companies...
As if it doesn't get worse. I mean, geez.
Yeah, so they could steal literal names and... many of these sex toys are meant to sync up with how you feel and who you are and who your partners are and if they have linked sex toys. And they could get these.
So this is if you're some cheating a-hole and you're using an interconnected sex toy with your illegitimate partner, you could very well be caught out with this.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Now, since this has been a thing, it's essentially sparked a whole wide security incident. And what happened is all of these sex toy people now, they only collect anonymous information. Kind of the same way Apple collects information. It's that they collect everything. I was just
gonna say, I was hoping, like, who is the Apple of the sex toy industry? Because that's what we need right now.
I don't know if we have an Apple for them, but they are all doing the Apple thing at least now.
Okay,
they
good,
claim.
Good.
Which is
claim.
They still collect all the same information.
That's all you need. In like 5 years from now, there's a data breach. And your
information. Some PSN hack or leak.
That actually reminds me of something. Remind me to speak to you after this episode because it's not relevant to Geralt.
Okay. So obviously,
and for those of you who are wondering, it's just not really relevant. It's just got to do with, just if I give a quick overview, there's this news related thing that's happening with Funhaus Productions and how these assholes like groomed underage teens and stuff like that. It's really quite
Funhaus.
Didn't you heard about it?
No.
Okay, well, since we're talking about it now, I'll just give a very brief. So two of the main guys, something Haywood and I forgot the other guy's name.
Mark Haywood.
Anyway, they have been exposed for eliciting sort of sexual communication with underage fans and grooming them to be their partners with which to be to commit infidelity with.
Wow.
And there's been a huge info dump of pictures and videos and screenshots of texts of these people and what they've been doing, and it's absolutely horrific. It's really gross. Like it's terrible because most of these people were underage, like 16, 17. And it's awful. It's an awful thing that these men even did this. And they're both married as well, some with children, which just makes it even worse.
Jeez.
Because why are you doing that? Anyway, it's a pretty awful situation that's happened. If anybody wants to read up more about it, we'll put a link below to a news article. But that's not really what this podcast is about. I mean, it's awful, and we've spoken about it now, and it is related. But yeah, Edward, carry on with what happens if your toy gets hacked.
Well, yes. On the note, actually, of what you just mentioned, the question have come up about countries where infidelity is outlawed. Countries like India and all the Middle Eastern countries, and so. Yes. So, essentially, what can happen is someone can hack into a sex toy under the guise of being a partner, as you mentioned before. we just diverged or digressed, and it can have serious repercussions. So, obviously, all these companies have started to do two-factor authentication and stuff because of this very reason. Except
thank goodness.
For QE or QUI or whatever, which is the Chastity Belt company, which still hasn't come back to pen test partners about their security flaws.
Okay, cool. So that's our major PSA and takeaway is if you see a device with QUE cellmate on it, avoid.
Yeah, just do the traditional thing. Get a nice hard silicone or metal dildo and do your thing without being connected to the Bluetooth world.
If anyone is interested in how the silicon variant of what Edward just mentioned was created, tune into episode 35.
There you go. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It ends on a big PSA.
Yeah, look, that makes a lot of sense. And it's why, I mean, for those of you who have been listening for a long time, you'll know Edward and I are strong proponents of Apple. Not because they're $1 trillion company. You know, we don't care about the company. What we do like is their stance on privacy. Compared to a lot of other companies, they are making legitimate efforts to prevent user data from ending up in the hands of people who shouldn't have them. And they try to minimize how much they actually collect from you as a user. And, you know, one of the best examples of this was how in iOS 14, there's actually a notification when an application pastes from your clipboard, which, you know, most of the time applications shouldn't even be doing that. Or you'll get a notification now if they're trying to use the microphone, or if they're trying to use the camera, all sorts of things. You know, and there've been many apps now that have been exposed for trying to access those things when they really have no right to them.
Exactly.
And this then goes into what Edward's been talking about with, you know, I mean, if this is happening on a normal scale, imagine now to these devices which are meant for pleasure, you know, meant to be in intimate situations. I mean, if they are exploiting your information or revealing it or leaking it, it's bad.
It's
you know, that's why you got to be savvy. You got to be tech savvy. You got to know what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
And I guess, is this the end of NSFW?
It is, unfortunately.
Actually, there was one more thing, but we'll push it maybe to next week. I could have maybe even slotted in now, but it doesn't matter. So yeah, that was good episode, Edward. Very interesting topics overall, in my opinion. All we need now is some internet connected Dragonfly, right?
I was about to say.
imagine this like interconnected ginormous like Dragonfly that gets hacked into, and then it decimates the population.
Oh gosh, a Dragonfly breeding with a murder hornet, and you know.
Oh, could you imagine? No. No. Anyway, with that in the mind, as we mentioned at the start of the episode, we are very, very, very excited with things that are happening, which we can't talk about just yet, even though we absolutely want to. But for those of you who do continue watching and listening, stay tuned over the next couple of weeks, because it's going to be an exciting time for us and for you.
Yes.
So with that in mind, thank you so much to all of you for listening and for tuning in. We honestly, truly appreciate the support. With that in mind, and if things go well, next week's episode might actually be quite a milestone. We don't want to say why just yet, but if it is, you will know. And I don't know if we'll do anything to celebrate, but we might. Anyway, with that said, thank you so much for always supporting us and DMing us and sending us information and listening and, you know, downloading and watching. It's so appreciated. And for myself, thank you very much. Until next week. Cheerio.
Bye.